In this video, we'll be talking about single-cell RNA sequencing, which is a transcriptomic method that has revolutionized recent biology. So basically, single-cell RNA sequencing is a method where it analyzes gene expression profile of individual cells within a heterogeneous cell population. So here you can see a heterogeneous cell mixture which would be running through a microfluidic device where it would be combined with barcoded beads. And since these barcoded beads are uniquely combined with one cell type, when these cells would be lysed, it would be completely known that the RNA that came out of the cell come from which particular cell, because one type of cell would get one type of bead. So basically the barcode would give us the information about the transcript coming from a particular cell type. Later on, it would be sequenced and the data would be visualized. In this video, we are going to talk about the entire procedure step by step. So stay tuned till the end. Let's put things in context. Imagine you are looking at a tissue and there are multiple cells that constitute the tissue, but the cells are not homogeneous. It hardly happens in real life. Instead, the cells are heterogeneous. And imagine you're looking for, let's say, 4 genes. And 4 genes might not be expressed in a similar fashion in all these cell type. There could be heterogeneity in the gene expression altogether. There could be dynamics of gene expression which could be different between all these cells color coded differently. So these kind of intrinsic variability of the gene expression or unique profile of the gene expression can be explored using the technique like single cell RNA sequencing. Before we delve into details, we should understand that this technique evolved gradually. Initially, qPCR was one of the important techniques to look at many genes at a time. Later on, when microarray came, it was one of the state-of-the-art technique in the field, which was eventually replaced by the bulk RNA sequencing. And these days, single-cell RNA sequencing has taken over from 2009, and over last decade, single-cell RNA sequencing has been used extensively in the field of biology, neuroscience, and many more other fields. So imagine you have a tissue. So you want to take out the cells and look at the gene expression profile in a bulk RNA sequencing. Now, many things can go wrong in this case because the assumption that a tissue would be homogeneous is completely wrong, because tissue is actually heterogeneous in a real life scenario. So imagine a single cell versus a bulk scenario. In the single cell sequencing, individual cells and their heterogeneity in the gene expression profile can be visualized. Whereas in the bulk RNA sequencing, that information is kind of masked. Imagine there is a gene which is upregulated in one cell type, let's say in this blue cell, and now that is downregulated in the red cell in the same magnitude. So in a bulk RNA sequencing, you are not able to characterize this phenomena because those are two different direction of changes and the magnitude is same, so it kind of cancels out. So these sort of problems are always experienced in bulk RNA sequencing, which is overcome or circumvented using the single cell RNA approach. So in this video, let's talk about more about this, but you can broadly understand single cell RNA sequencing to be a fruit salad where you can enjoy and understand individual texture of these fruits. You know which fruit you are eating. But imagine you are eating a smoothie. You would only be able to understand the dominant tastes, right? You would not be able to understand the taste of individual components of that smoothie. And that's what exactly true for bulk RNA sequencing versus single cell RNA sequencing. So let's talk about the procedure in step by step. So there is an extensive and exhaustive wet lab procedure followed by a dry lab analysis paradigm. We'll talk about both. First, we'll start with a tissue which has obviously heterogeneous cell types, but it's in a tissue format. So it has to be dissociated with the help of some sort of enzyme like trypsin or papain. Papain is very frequently used to dissociate tissue and form this single cell suspension. This single cell suspension is the starting point of the single cell RNA sequencing. So in a tube, you take the cells, incubate that with trypsin, wait for some time, and then pass those suspension after pipette up and down in a fax tube. there are mesh in the fax tube which allow the passage of individual cells. If the cells are clumped, they would not pass through this sieve. Ultimately, you would end up with single cell suspension. Step 2 is to count the cells using hemocytometer. So you can put a little bit aliquot of cells and try to count the cells using the hemocytometer to know how much cells are there in the suspension and what is the viability status. Then there is a specific chip onto which the cells are loaded along with oil and the gel beads. So these gem beads are important beads. So basically they have specific barcode attachment to it. We'll talk about it later, but let us talk about these overall assembly. You can see the gem beads are in the panel number 2, and in the row number 1 there is cell plus enzyme. So basically one can clearly imagine that what would happen here. The gem bead would flow through the microfluidic device that would combine with the cells which are also associated with enzymes, and since from the well 3 the oil is also flowing, all these components would gel well together to form a bead. It's an emulsion that is formed, right? Because basically you have oil, you have watery substances where the cell was suspended. Now it forms a phase separated entity which is known as the gem bead. It has a bead, it has cell, and it has enzymes. And you can imagine this is not only a uniform event. There are many cell types, and there are many gem beads which would be combined to form many of these single cell gem emulsions. So basically gem emulsion contains these 4 components: single cells, reverse transcriptase enzymes and reagents, then gel beads, and basically then oil. So these are the components. So they create a reaction vessel as if these are individual small PCR tubes. And in a moment it would be clear why these are important. Now basically this entire process is happening in this particular small equipment, tabletop equipment, but it's basically allowing the flow through these microfluidic device and combining these gem. Proper gem formation is the first and foremost criteria of a successful single cell RNA sequencing experiment. Now you can understand this is the step where you just put the gem beads. You have to vortex the gem beads and then incorporate into the chip. Eventually this gem bead would have this kind of hairy appearances on the surface. So if you look at and zoom into one of them, you would find each of these hairs have primers, 10x cell barcode, unique molecular identifier, and a poly-DT attachment. This would be useful to capture mRNA which would come from the cells. Anyway, this is basically the 10x barcode of a gem bead. Then basically you put the single cell suspension in a different well and it would be combined in this microfluidic device. And now in the gem bead you would have, in one particular emulsion you would have one type of gem bead, let's say this green color bead with the red color cell. And let's see why this is important. And formation of the emulsion is really critical. So now if we zoom into each of these emulsion, we would be able to see that there are specific cells, right? And eventually we would lyse these cells. When we lyse these cells, there would be RNAs which come out. Now each of these RNAs would be captured by the oligo-DT part of these gel. Now once it is captured on these bead, like this particular scenario, each of these emulsion has the enzyme. So inside this reaction vessel, which is this emulsion drop, you can see a cDNA would be formed from the mRNA, right? And this is really important. This cDNA is labeled with the specific cell barcode. That means even if you mix it up with other samples, you would know that where it came from. So basically this process is exactly like attaching a barcode to anything. Later on, just by reading the barcode, you can understand where it came from. So inside these mini reaction vessels, which are these emulsions, one can convert the RNA into cDNA just to stabilize them. and the sequences that have same barcode came from the same cell. This is the key principle and essence of the single cell RNA sequencing. Right now, imagine this sequence, all these mRNA and the cDNAs are now mixed. Even if they are mixed, just by looking at their barcode, one can understand that where does these cell come from. In this example, you can see these red barcoded cDNA came from this particular cell. Anyway, so common cell barcode means they have a common cell of origin. So obviously, just by looking at the barcode, one can understand that what was the origin cell type it came from. And then people ask, okay, what was that cell type? So now we have the bead, and bead help us to create this emulsion, and that emulsion acts like a small reaction vessel which separates each transcriptome of each cell, and that's the essence of the single cell RNA sequencing data. Now, this step is known as the library preparation, where there are cDNA fragments incorporated into a specific orientation. So first it would be fragmented with enzymatic fragmentation, ends would be repaired, and ligation of the ends would be performed, followed by a cleanup and priming step. Specific sequencing barcodes would be attached to it, and now this particular thing is ready to be loaded onto a sequencer. Now the step is to look at the library QC. In this step, one looks for the overall fragment size, and the fragment should has a kind of uniform distribution around 500 base pairs. That's a good library QC. So overall, what we looked at so far is a workflow where it starts with single cell suspension, followed by combining those single cells with the gem bead to form emulsion. This is a critical step. The gem emulsion formation is a very critical step. In the step 3, we looked at how we basically barcoded these individual cDNA with that emulsion RT reaction. After this step 3, that means emulsion formation, eventually the emulsion would be broken, cleaned up, the oil would be taken away, and the cDNA would be cleaned up to form a library. The sequencing library would be then checked for its quality control, and eventually, if it passed the QC, then it would be loaded onto a sequencer. So from the sequencer, what we would get is basically fragment of sequences. Each fragment of these sequences are known as reads. We would have thousands and millions of these sequences. So sequence fragment would be later aligned to a reference genome using specific software. And in this software provided by many companies, provide detailed quality control parameters like you see here. I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty details of this in this video, but anyway, it's another QC parameter. It would tell you how many cells was captured in the process, and all these kind of information would be provided here. Now what we got out of this is a count matrix. That means in one side you have the cells, in another side you have the genes. It's kind of like an n-dimensional data. So n-dimensional data has to be reduced in terms of dimensionality to visualize it better. One such dimensionality reduction algorithm is UMAP, or manifold reduction. So here we can see and visualize this data. Just to put it in a very layman's perspective, looking at this data, you just have to see each colored dots. Each colored dot represent one particular cell. For example, this red colored dot is one type of cell, and this particular dot is very different from these orange or blue colored cell types. Anyway, there are many other ways of visualizing the data. One can plot heat maps of cells versus genes, or log2 fold change of all the genes that are differentially upregulated or downregulated. One can look for enrichment of pathways, etc. So basically, this is how basic UMAP look like. There are different clusters, and the way the algorithm define cluster is based on transcriptional similarity versus dissimilarity. That means in this particular case, you can see the green cluster was very different from the red cluster because they are also different in context of transcription or the transcript they have. So one way of understanding which transcript is upregulated in which cluster, one can look at a marker gene in a feature plot. Here it's kind of like a heat map. You can have that overall landscape. It's like a geographical map. And then it talks about this particular gene, that MS4A1 is highly expressed in this green cluster, and it is not expressed in other clusters. One can also look at and visualize the same information in format of a violin plot. One can even ask that, okay, among all these 8 clusters, what are the top genes that make them different, and plot all of that in format of a heat map. One can also use another representation called bubble plot, where each of these bubble represent the percentage of cell that express this gene, and the color represent the expression levels. One can also create trajectory. That means like a differentiation trajectory can be analyzed from these single cell RNA sequencing data. So a lot of analysis can be done, and it's a too short video to explain all of these. But one of the important example that I can give you is like one can look at a mutant versus a control scenario, or a control versus a drug treated scenario. In this case, one can look at the transcriptome of the mutant versus control and compare them each other. So one can look at a particular gene and ask whether that gene is upregulated or downregulated. One can visualize that using violin plot. One can look at a plethora of genes, a set of genes, and try to understand what is the change of their levels, how many cell change that level using a bubble plot. One can look at the pathways that has changed based on the change in these genes. So all these information can be retrieved from the single cell RNA sequencing data. So it's basically you need to understand how to analyze and mine information from this data. But also it's important to notice that there are many limitations of single cell RNA sequencing. There are technical variabilities, there are detection sensitivity issues, there are some sort of bias when cells are stressed, and cost and analysis pipelines. These are also a problem in the current scenario. But despite of all these limitations, this particular technology has literally revolutionized the field of transcriptomics. So I hope you got a quick refresher and quick concept about this technique, and in subsequent videos we'll talk about this technique and data analysis in bit more details. So see you in next video.